Miss Slaughter, you testified that Jack Boland told you that it was Bradley Ward who called him in the early morning hours of July 1st. Yet, Mr. Boland himself told this court that it was Edward Quartermain. How do you account for this discrepancy?
Well, what was he going to tell you? Bradley called and he met him and he killed him?
But essentially that is your account, and Mr. Boland, now dead, certainly can't contradict you or speak to his own defense, now can he?
I'm telling you the truth.
The truth? Yeah. And how would you define that?
The truth?
Mm-hmm.
What's true? What's real? What happened?
And when we have two varying accounts of that alleged truth, how are we to distinguish between the two? Whose truth are we to accept?
Jack had a reason to lie to you. I don't.
No? Uh-huh. Now, let's examine what you've told us so far. For example, about your brief career as an actress.
It wasn't so brief. It just wasn't so hot. I worked my tail off, but I couldn't make it happen. So what?
Well, so if you were unable to make ends meet with your life in the theater, how did you support yourself?
Same as lots of actors do, part-time and temp jobs, waitress, receptionist, this and that.
Uh-huh. And would this and that include work in an establishment known as the Pass Key Club?
Yes, I waited tables there.
Could you tell us about that?
Objection. Counsel is wandering into irrelevancy.
Speaks to the character of the witness, Your Honor.
I'll allow a brief description, Miss Slaughter.
Don't know what there is to tell. It was a private club. I was a waitress.
Well, tell us about the working conditions. For example, were you required to wear a particular mode of dress?
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of places have some kind of uniform.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, isn't that uniform... Let's talk about that for a second. Wasn't it a very skimpy, revealing costume?
It was a little on the brief side. The boys, the members, liked that. It was no big deal. Wasn't like we took our clothes off.
Now, did you or your colleagues at the Passkey ever socialize with members outside of the club?
Once in a while, I dated somebody. Most of us did.
And did any of the men you dated ever give you money?
You mean like a present?
However you wish to characterize it.
Let me think. Well, once, this nice fellow from Chattanooga paid an overdue phone bill for me. And another time, a guy loaned me money to pay my rent. Those types are loaded. It's no skin off their nose.
Uh-huh. Now, this acting job that you mentioned, the one that brought you here to Port Charles, isn't it a fact that you got that part through a producer who was also a member of the Passkey Club?
Yes, but I got it because I was a good actress.
Oh, I believe that, ma'am. All of us are seeing that here today.
Objection.
Sustained. The clerk will strike Mr. Schultz's last comment.
Miss Slaughter, you've told us that following your Broadway disaster that Jack Boland financed for you, he suggested that you take a break from show business, and he brought you here to Port Charles.
That's right.
Wasn't he bringing you here, in fact, to become his mistress?
Jack was my friend.
And you jumped at the chance because at last your history of taking money from wealthy men was about to pay off with a big job security.
Objection. Counsel is badgering the witness.
Mr. Schultz.
I'm about to clarify this whole line of questioning, Your Honor.
You may proceed cautiously.
Is history repeating itself here today, Ms. Slaughter?
Don't know what you mean.
Well, isn't it a fact that your airfare to Port Charles and your hotel bill are all being paid again by a generous, wealthy man, Edward Quartermain?
I couldn't have gotten here otherwise. I had to come and tell the truth.
For what price, Miss Slaughter? What else did Mr. Quartermain promise you in recompense for your version of the truth?
Objection.
Overruled.
How much, Miss Slaughter?
Nothing. He didn't promise me anything. All he said was he'd be very grateful.
it a fact, Miss Slaughter, that you've made a career not as an actress, although it's clear that you're talented in that regard, but in accepting the gratitude of wealthy men?
That isn't fair.
Why then should we believe anything that you tell us on this picture stand when it's perfectly clear?
Stop it! Stop tormenting that woman! Stop it! Stop it! It doesn't matter who she is or what she's done. She is telling you the truth. Order! Now you let me speak! Edward Quartermain did not kill Bradley Ward. I know it's the truth, and I will tell you why.
Order in the court. Any further outbursts, and I will clear this room. Bailiff, remove the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
The witness may step down.
What is going on? Does Grandma know something?
It looks that way.
Oh, Edward.
Are you all right?
Yes, dear. It's your father.
Looks like we're in for some 11th hour revelations.
You don't suppose Mary May's going to confess?
Oh, what, to murdering her own son? Don't be obscene.
No, but look at the way Grandfather's watching her. Maybe he suspected something all along.
Everyone will be seated.
Your Honor,
Mrs. Ward, you're out of order. What's more, you've already testified.
I realize that, Your Honor, but there are things they didn't ask me because they didn't know. And I had hoped that this would not be necessary. But Edward Quartermain did not, could not have murdered my son. And may I tell you why?
Your Honor, are you going to allow this?
I will have order in this court.
Clearly, this is nothing more than a desperate attempt by the defense to obfuscate the facts of this case. This woman has already testified. Why are we being subjected to this?
Mr. Schultz, I am not going to put up with your outbursts either. As it is, we are dangerously close to grounds for a mistrial. Counsel, approach the bench.
You suppose that Stannis was moving for a mistrial all along?
He looked just as surprised as the rest of us.
What is this?
The whole truth. It's time.
I'm not about to agree to let her prejudice the jury with what might be a complete fiction.
I suggest we adjourn to chambers with Mrs. Ward and discover what this is about.
Your Honor, unless she's about to confess to the murder herself, I strongly object to her taking the stand again.
There's no point speculating till we speak with the woman. Court will adjourn for a brief recess. Mrs. Ward, will you join us in chambers?
Yes, Your Honor.
All rise. I can request to accompany you as your attorney.
That won't be necessary.
Mrs. Ward, will you come this way, please?
Mary May? No.
Edward, it's time.